Hi everybody, and welcome to our latest video in our History of Racing series. Today we're going to be looking at some of the weirder facts about NASCAR. But before we do, if you enjoy this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out the other videos in this playlist. I'll put a link to them right about here. And now, here's 10 things you probably didn't know about NASCAR. Undoubtedly one of the most popular motorsports series in the world, NASCAR has been turning left, and sometimes right, since 1948. Along the way, it's made a lot of history, and some of it you probably weren't aware of. Here's the top 10 things you didn't know about NASCAR. We're used to certain drivers dominating at certain tracks, but the season sweep of the Daytona 500 and 400-mile races is surprisingly rare. In 2013, Jimmie Johnson joined an elite club when he became the first man in 31 years to win both the Daytona 500 and the Midsummer Coke 400. The last person to do that before Johnson was Bobby Allison in 1982. In 1974, the Daytona 500 actually only ran 450 miles. Many of the races in NASCAR that year had to be shortened due to the energy crisis. The race lasted 180 laps to complete the 450 miles, rather than the usual 200 laps and 500 miles. Richard Petty took home victory in the famous number 43 car. The purse for the 2020 Daytona 500 was $23.6 million. But did you know that much of that money doesn't go to the drivers and teams? That's because NASCAR takes a cut of it for sanctioning fees. Some drivers work for salaries plus bonuses and sponsorship income, and some work for a percentage of the earnings. Don't feel bad for the drivers though. Top drivers earn more than $1 million for their teams, including some part-time drivers. A NASCAR race team will go through more than 15 sets of tires in a week. You may already know that, but did you know that teams have to pay the same $5 federal disposal fee that you have to pay at the neighborhood tire store? NASCAR teams aren't just hard on tires though. A team usually goes through 3 times as much motor oil as your passenger car. Some have said that NASCAR drivers aren't real athletes, but they can experience 3 G's of force against their bodies during turns. That's about the same as space shuttle astronauts experience during launches. Research shows that fit drivers are better able to handle G-forces, and that muscle mass actually offers more protection in a wreck. So it's no wonder that drivers work out a lot. Temperatures in a NASCAR car can sometimes exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and as much as 170 degrees Fahrenheit by the floorboards. Drivers can lose between 5 to 10 pounds in sweat during a race. If a driver loses more than 3% of his body weight in sweat and doesn't replace those fluids, focus and reflexes begin to decline. A NASCAR driver also maintains the same heart rate as a serious marathon runner, between 120 and 150 beats per minute for 3 hours plus. Many of today's modern safety features were inspired by the drivers themselves. Richard Petty's crash in the 1970 Rebel 400 at Darlington, where he fell partially out of the car, inspired NASCAR to adopt the window net to help keep drivers' arms inside the car to avoid injuries during a crash. Dale Earnhardt has inspired several safety innovations. A serious crash late in the running of the 1996 Die Hard 500 at Talladega, involving several drivers, resulted in Earnhardt's number 3 car hitting the tri-oval wall nearly head-on at almost 200 miles per hour. After hitting the wall, Earnhardt's car flipped and slid along the track back in front of race traffic, where he was hit again, causing severe damage to the roof and windshield. Following this accident, and another that led to the death of Russell Phillips at Charlotte, NASCAR adopted the Earnhardt bar, a metal brace in the center of the windshield that reinforces the roof during a crash. Following Earnhardt's fatal accident in the 2001 Daytona 500, 2 more safety improvements were mandated. Head and neck restraint systems and full-faced helmets would soon become a requirement for all NASCAR drivers. Since these improvements were implemented, no NASCAR driver has been killed in a race. Yet another safety feature is credited to Ryan Newman. In 2009, after he was involved in a crash at Talladega, Newman advocated for further safety improvements. NASCAR responded by adding a bar across the top of the roll cage that became known as the Newman bar. In the 2020 Daytona 500, it may have saved his own life after a crash on the final lap of the race sent his car flying through the air before landing on its roof and catching fire. Lots of NASCAR fans ask drivers how they go to the bathroom during a race. Though it's not a frequent problem, since there are no rest stops in a 500-mile race, if they do have to go, they just go, right there in the car. A quick splash of water or Gatorade before they get out of the car helps to hide it. NASCAR is heavily involved in charity work. Did you know that all the money collected in fines during the year is donated to charity? Next time a team breaks a rule, just remember that it's all for a good cause. Mario Andretti won the 1967 Daytona 500 despite some very weird opposition from his own team. The team actually tried to sabotage him so that his teammate, Fred Lorenzen, could win the race. Lorenzen was not thrilled at being partnered with an inexperienced Andretti, but Andretti overcame the odds and took the win anyway. You haven't made it until you've had your own comic book, right? On October 4th, 1998, the Batman vs. the Joker showdown at Charlotte Motor Speedway pitted Dale Jarrett's Batman theme number 88 versus Kenny Irwin's Joker theme number 28. Of course, there was a promotional comic released to go along with the event. Then, in 1990, Vortex Comics released a short-lived series called Legends of NASCAR, with issues devoted to racers like Bill Elliott, Ken Schrader, Bobby Allison, and others. NASCAR even made its own comic series from 2007 to 2009 called NASCAR Heroes. It was nominated for a Harvey Award. In 2014, DC Comics teamed up with Hendrick Motorsports to pair DC characters Batman, Superman, Flash, and Green Lantern with NASCAR drivers Jeff Gordon, Casey Kane, Jimmie Johnson, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. Fox Television also ran 2 seasons of a NASCAR-themed sci-fi anime series called NASCAR Racers, about a racing war of good Team Fast X versus evil Team RexCorp. Well, I know I learned a lot of odd facts about NASCAR while researching this video, and I hope we were able to fill your heads with a little bit of weird, useless information too. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next lap.